and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV, our flagship TV and radio stations. In addition, on TV on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin, we're on Birmingham area municipal access. Also on the radio in the Birmingham Bloomfield area on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF. And on the web today, as always, CivicCenterTV.com. You can watch our programming live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including the Oakland County Megacast. And then on our Facebook page is Facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and Facebook.com/LakesFM on today's broadcast. And as always, joining me from her home studio in the city of Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
What's happening? Happy Monday to you, Tyler.
Yes, happy Monday to you, Ronnie.
So let me ask you a question.
Go for it.
Monday, new day of the week. Some people say Sunday, but typically we'll say Monday because that's when our work week begins for so many people. Do you start new habits, new routines on a Monday?
It depends. It really depends on when the idea for that new habit pops in my head. If it's something that's like, okay, you know what? I'm sick and tired of myself doing A, B, and C, and I have that thought at like 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, I'll probably be like, okay, if it's something I can immediately start, I'll immediately start it, whether it's Sunday night into Monday morning, or it's like, okay, well, you need to do A, B, and C to get ready for the day on Sunday night instead of doing that in the morning like an idiot. Then Monday morning then I'll do that Sunday night, and from Sunday night into Monday night for Tuesday, I'll start a new habit. So it really depends on the day, but sure, sometimes I'll start a new habit, start fresh on a Monday. Otherwise, it's whenever it comes to mind, and it's a good time.
Well, for so many people, it's like, hey, if I'm going to start a new diet or a new exercise program, sure, I start on Mondays. So, as I have mentioned before, I signed up for the half marathon for the Detroit Free Press, which is in October. And I want to make it clear, I am not a runner. And I have done the half 2 other times. And I remember the last time I did it, I said, I am never doing this again. But yet here I am, signed up. So I started yesterday. I was like, hey, let me get my plan together. I actually went out yesterday for the first time, but just kind of like hey, this is going to be my route type thing. Downloaded the app and put out the exercise or the running training plan. So there's a 20-week training guide for people. You can find it online. Just go on Pinterest. And then, so the free press is 22 weeks away. So I said, well, let me start it this week because then it'll give me like a couple weeks buffer time as well. Sure. And I'm like, you know what? For the first time, I have a big dog. I'm going to teach Trixie how to run with me. Uh-oh. And the great thing with Trixie, she'll come home and then maybe she'll just conk out.
Yeah.
So I get up every day at like around 6 with the dog, take her out, and have my running clothes on. I have my new app downloaded, ready for that first day. And then this is how it is with Trixie. Oh, sniff.
Oh yeah, sniff. Everywhere.
Yep. But she's so used to a routine of we start out on the trail, and then we come up to a certain cut through, and then we go through the neighborhood and then home. And then she gets a snack, and then she goes back upstairs to bed until Woody gets up. And then at that point in time, she goes out for a longer walk and then comes in and gets her breakfast. Trying to break your dog of a habit is worse than a human. I even had her special little cookies, and I was trying to entice her. No, Trix, we're going this way. No, come on, let's keep going, keep going. She's like, turn around. So I had to bring the dog back and then go out for my run.
Yeah, it's very tough to break habits for dogs when they're in their way. They're used to it. They like it that way. They can anticipate it. And then when you try to turn it a different way and change things around, they're kind of like, wait a minute, but we do it this way. And you're like, well, no, we usually do it this way, but let's try it this way. Here's a snack, here's a treat. Let's try it this way. But that way is right here. So, right. Yeah, especially and with a bigger dog like Trixie, it's even tougher because they're like, no, I'm not going that way. What are you doing?
Oh, and she totally was like, no. And I'm like, no, I have your good snacks.
Right.
Come on. And these aren't like her regular snacks. They're the high,
Oh, yeah.
after snacks that she only gets like in her little training sessions. She was like, no, go
Not doing
on.
it.
See you later, human.
Yeah, it's like a Saturday morning, and I absolutely will not go into further details here because it's not entirely radio friendly. I had to take my cats into the emergency vet on
Oh, I hope they're
Saturday morning.
okay.
They're fine. They're fine now. It was a
Okay.
bad situation. I came home last week after one of the meetings, and they had unraveled one of their toys, and needless to say, there were some complications as a result of unraveling that toy, and I guess them getting a little hungry, or one of them at least.
We get it.
and
We've
so,
all had
yeah.
pets eat things they shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I had a similar fun time. The cats do not like their carriers, and they definitely don't like driving in the car in their carrier. But one of my cats, Jax, and he was perfectly fine getting into the carrier. Just walked right in like, oh, what's this? And I closed the carrier on him. He's like, okay, well, that was rude, but I'll take it. And then Idle, my other cat, that was a struggle. She was stiffening up, putting her back up. She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. You can put food in there. You can put toys in there. You can be all nice to me and pet me and be like, okay, we're not going to do it. I'm not doing it. And that was about a 15-minute struggle to get her into there. So they're very used to their ways. And when animals don't like something, they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. Good luck trying.
That is so true. So I do wonder too, for people out there that have pets and you don't have kids or the two-legged kids, do you still get gifts for pet parents?
Right.
So I had a friend who dropped off, give me flowers and a card for being a pet parent. And I've done things in the past for other friends, because I will say with Trixie, she's like having a kid. She's a full-time dog, and she's a toddler in the bed. I mean, she takes up more space than we've ever been used to. But with that too, do pet parents count too on Mother's Day?
I think they should. I think they should count. I mean, especially considering the time that they have to put into raising these animals. And you know what? Look, if you have family and you have friends that are regularly visiting these animals and appreciate their time, who do you think's raising them? Who do you think's training them? Huh? That takes effort as well. And especially if they also have human kids of their own, that's even more effort on top of that. So yes, appreciate the pet parents as well. So it was Mother's Day for pet mothers as well as human mothers.
And I will point out, so my husband, he got me a card from the dog, but I was like, no flowers, nothing else. Although he cleaned up the kitchen last night, which was good. But
you can do that on any day, though.
Should, but
exactly.
Hey. So I will say, so I always try to have like flowers in the background, and I was like totally anticipating because my shamrocks are starting to die. I was like, oh, I'm not going to buy flowers at the grocery store this week because I'm sure I'll get them for Mother's Day. Did my husband get me flowers for Mother's Day? No. But a friend did. So I broke up the bouquet and they're around the house. So I put the yellow, but the wildflowers are from my run this morning. So I will say to all the guys out there, just pick up flowers. You can get them anywhere.
It's pretty easy. It's one stop to the grocery store or to a flower shop. There's plenty of them. There's plenty of spaces there. If you don't go in the last minute, you'll be okay theoretically.
I take Kroger flowers. I don't care. I'm not picky.
Fine. Flowers
I am very a low maintenance person, though. Hey, so I guess we should kind of get the show started. But I will say to all the mothers out there, happy belated Mother's Day. For mothers and two-legged mothers as well, because I will say, Tyler, this has been just an insane year for so many parents, moms and dads alike. And we know that so many women have been leaving the workforce because of COVID-19 and the crisis, and having your kids are at home, and like the up and down roller coaster that our schools have been through. So we know it's been a crazy year for all of the parents. So Really, thank you to everyone out there and all the mothers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, they've been putting in extra work this year, just like our teachers have, just like our frontline workers in the hospitals have. Our mothers and our parents all together have been putting in a lot of extra work to deal with this pandemic at home. So yes, a big shout out to the mothers out there, and big thank you to the mothers out there for their efforts over the last two years almost that we've been in this pandemic.
So looking at that, it kind of like there's hope on the horizon.
Yes.
And it's in these little steps, such as when we jump into the headlines, fully vaccinated staff at long-term care facilities are not going to have routine COVID-19 test. So fully vaccinated staff members at long-term care facilities here in the state of Michigan will not have to have fully routine test for the coronavirus under a revised order by the state health department. So people who are fully vaccinated, at least 2 weeks, keep in mind, past the second dose of the 2-shot Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, or the 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So the changes affect the skilled nursing facilities at homes for the aged and adult foster care facilities licensed to care for 13 or more people. The order is effective immediately. Now, there are some exceptions. Testing is still going to be required for all new or returning residents to a facility and newly hired staff when the person is unvaccinated and has not been tested in 72 hours prior to intake or the start date. So testing any resident or staff member with symptoms of the virus or suspected exposure to the virus, regardless of the person's vaccination status. Weekly testing of all residents and staff in facilities that are experiencing an outbreak, they will still need to be tested, and weekly testing of all unvaccinated staff. So when you look at this really, Tyler, it's like baby steps back to the world that we used to know.
Yeah, it's slow, but it's slow steps, but they're steps forward at least. We're not taking lateral steps or backward steps, it looks like, at this moment in time. And that's, if nothing else, very good news to be hearing. And so in these long-term care facilities where testing has been so regular and has been intensive at times throughout this pandemic, to have people that are vaccinated in these facilities not need to have regular novel coronavirus testing except under special circumstances, it's going to be a relief for them, for those workers in these long-term care facilities that have better things to be doing than taking their time to get tested again and again and again for COVID-19, for residents who are frankly just tired from other ailments, let alone getting a slightly invasive COVID-19 test, especially the PCR test up your nose. That's not exactly the most comfortable thing. Definitely a relief and a sign going forward that less testing being necessary in some cases means that we're getting closer maybe to the end of this pandemic. And still there are rigorous testing protocols that are in place in cases of emergencies and outbreaks, and to continue to be cautious for those who are not vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to keep them safe as well.
Yeah, and we should note too that a lot of this is tied to, when it comes to the testing and the record keeping, is tied to some of their mandates from the state. Yes. So this alleviates that. So now hopefully they can spend a little bit of extra time, focus on the patients that need it as well. Hey, a physicians group says COVID vaccine mandates are unnecessary, but Michigan universities are saying, no, we think they are, and we're going to continue right now with our mandate to have some students vaccinated. So schools like the University of Michigan, Oakland University, Lawrence Tech are requiring students and university housing to be vaccinated against COVID-19 for the upcoming fall semesters. So a group of physicians, though, is asking the schools reconsider in a letter to the deans, governing boards, and trustees at universities where COVID-19 vaccine requirements, however, Paul Kempen, president for the Conservative Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, listed more than a dozen reasons why schools should reconsider those mandates, including vaccine side effects and the lower risk of young adults suffering or dying from COVID-19. However, his statements do contradict the American College Health Association, which has recommended vaccination requirements for all on-campus college students, saying the comprehensive COVID-19 vaccination is the most effective way for colleges and universities to return to safe on-campus experiences. And one thing that's been so confusing, I think, for the entire public throughout this pandemic has been the back and forth when it comes to some of our medical personnel and trying to guide us through this pandemic.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you really want to see what the by and large opinion of the greater medical community, those that have, in this case, as Dr. Kempen, who was part of this board, from the Conservative Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, their opinion versus the wider opinion of the majority of physicians and medical personnel in the United States and what their thoughts are on this. However, that organization claiming that vaccine side effects and lower risk factors for younger people as some of the reasons why these vaccine mandates should be reconsidered. And there are side effects for any medication that somebody is taking, and while there are less severe necessarily symptoms and results from younger people getting COVID-19, in the most recent spike we saw, that it was mostly of younger populations that were getting the virus. So on the other hand, this makes sense to reconsider those mandates if we're at a point nearing the fall semester where the state of Michigan or the United States or both are at that 70+% of people in the population fully vaccinated, that herd immunity point. Maybe there isn't an absolute need for vaccine protocols, mandated protocols for those living in on-campus housing and in other situations. And at that point, it can be reconsidered. But for now, I'd like to see what the wider medical community's opinion is on this and take that rather than one organization's opinion or the other.
Hey, Michigan said late Friday that 54% of adults ages 16 and up have gotten at least one COVID-19 shot. So that's roughly 2.5 percentage points jump after factoring in people who were vaccinated outside the state of Michigan or at federal facilities. So the addition of nearly 227,000 residents to the state's count put Michigan close. We are so close to that 55% benchmark that the governor says is needed to allow in-person work in all sectors, including offices. So keep in mind, this is part of that overall plan to reopen the state. The reopening step will occur 2 weeks after the milestone is reached. State officials said a new tracker uses data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which can access data from out-of-state providers and federal entities. So here is a reminder to everyone out there. The state health department urged people who are vaccinated in another state, bring your card to your next doctor's appointment or into your local health department so your immunization information is updated in the Michigan Care Improvement Registry. Right now, keep in mind, we're really trying to reach not only that 55% benchmark, but also at 60% of vaccinated people, capacity at sports stadiums, banquet halls, conference centers, and funeral homes will rise to 25% after 2 weeks. 50% at gyms, restaurants, and bars will no longer have that 11 o'clock curfew. Tyler, that is really such a number that so many people are striving for. And then we can reach that 70%. But if we can reach that 60%, it will really help so many of our struggling businesses right now.
And that's part of why there was such great reception when the My Vax to Normal plan was announced from Governor Whitmer, from the business community, from organizations like someone we speak to regularly over at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, of having this gradual reopening plan based on vaccinations. And maybe that is having an effect. We don't have any direct correlation or relationship between this 2.5% increase in COVID-19 vaccinations, at least the first shot in the last week or so that's been happening. But maybe that plan and that incentive of this gradual reopening based on these percentages is getting people to go and get vaccinated. And if that's the case, then I'm sure that the state government, especially the governor's office and all our local government and county officials as well, have to be really satisfied with that, because that could be that spark that has seemingly been needed in the vaccination effort that as of late has hit a bit of a lull.
Hey, with that, we want to jump into the show, so we're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. As a reminder, you can always get the information on the headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and then at the top of the page, you'll also find direct links to valuable resources, including the state of Michigan and Oakland County, so you can do the research and for yourself. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and right after the break, we'll be joined with Dave Coulter, the Oakland County Executive. We're excited to have him on the show. So many things to catch up with him about here in Oakland County. That's next here on the Megacast.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We want to say thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. If we can just jump into this Monday, get things started off with some excitement. It has been quite the amazing year, not just for all of us, but we have really relied on our elected leaders throughout this pandemic to guide us and guide the direction of where our businesses are going, and really to be kind of that voice of reason as well. And with us now, Dave Coulter, he's the Oakland County Executive. It's always great to have you with us. How are you?
Ronnie, I'm doing very, very well. Ronnie, Tyler, great to see both of you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you as well. If we can kind of just jump in, we were just talking about the vaccination numbers here in the state of Michigan. And we do know that Oakland County, from the very beginning, has kind of led the Tri-County area when it comes to vaccination numbers. What do you contribute that to?
We have a very strong and robust health department here. And, it's one of those divisions of government that you don't think about too much until you really need them. We were the only county in this region that had 6 epidemiologists already on our staff. We have hundreds of nurses. So we were prepared in that respect, and they've just done a tremendous job. They really have.
So with that, I know that in the early stages, it's so crazy when you sit back and you watch the supply versus the demand, supply chain and everything. I will say I was in Target yesterday. I was so excited. This is how pitiful my life is. By the way, county executive, I was so excited to see all the shelves of toilet paper, disinfectant wipes, Clorox, everything was stocked. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's happy. That makes me happy. And I never would have said that.
You know, Ronnie, I don't think you're alone. We're all just sort of craving getting back to some kind of normal, right? I mean, yesterday was Mother's Day, and that's a day that I host at my house. And so I have the family over. Last year was very different. We in all of our celebrations. And yesterday's felt a little more normal now. Everybody's been vaccinated in my immediate family, my mom and stepdad. And so, I don't think that's unusual. We're all just craving getting back to a life that we knew before March of last year.
So we know that Oakland County, you had the great program rolling out from the beginning. And I will say, as someone who has worked for the government, when you take a step behind the scenes, the fact that government can move and change so quickly is a miracle in itself. But I will say you have the Save Your Spot program from the beginning. So when it comes to the vaccine, the supply and the demand, we know now the supply has not only caught up with the demand, it's kind of surpassing it. What do you think is going to be the next phase as we try to convince a hesitant community to get vaccinated?
That is a great point and the great question, because you're right. Just 6 weeks ago, I was saying we need more doses. We need more doses. We have this huge demand. We had almost 600,000 people signed up on our Save Your Spot list. Here we are 6 weeks later. We've gone through that list. We're going through it a second time to make sure we've got everybody. But now the question is, we need more arms to put those doses into. And so you're right. We've gotten through the population that was eager to get it, anxious to get it. And now I'd say there's sort of two groups left. We know that there's a percentage of the population that just doesn't want to get vaccinated, and they may never want to be vaccinated or may never get vaccinated. But there's also a portion of the population, and I think it's larger, that's just been kind of reluctant, slow about it. They wanted to see how it went. They wanted to see how their family members did. They wanted to read up on it, or it just hasn't been convenient enough. They work a lot. The hours haven't worked. Making an appointment was difficult. So really right now, Ronnie, the phase that we're in is getting to that second group, the ones who we just want to make it more convenient for them. And so you've seen in the last couple of weeks, we've switched to no appointment necessary. You can just walk up and get the vaccine. We're doing a lot more smaller pop-up vaccine locations, as we call them, versus the larger ones. We're still running the large vaccination sites, like the one in Pontiac that we have, but we're doing a lot more that are community-based at a local community center or church where it's just more convenient for people to get there. So in this next phase, which I hope gets us to 70%, that's the goal. You talked about the various benchmarks, but 70% to me is this community immunity where we can really bring these numbers down. I'm hoping that by leaning in and making it as easy as possible for that group of people, that we can reach those numbers.
Dave Coulter with us here on the Megacast. He's the Oakland County Executive. And I will say, Dave, with that, I feel like we're kind of going through what we went through in the beginning with the testing. Remember, it was hard to get the test. And then when you got the test, then it was like the delay in the response. So did that help prepare you for the vaccine in this next phase?
I think it did. And I often remember and look back to those early days. You know, it was all about scrambling to get PPE. And we were competing with other states and other countries in terms of getting the PPE, the testing supplies, then standing up these drive-through testing locations. So, yeah, I would say this is very much we've learned some lessons from that, a lot of lessons. We've learned a lot about COVID from the beginning. And I think the one thing that I would encourage people to remember is as frustrating as this virus has been and as challenging as it's been, and sometimes as political or polarizing as it's felt, we need to remember that in 14 relatively short months, we've learned a lot, we've done a lot, And we are at a place now that's very different than a year ago. And we are going to get through this. The light is at the end of the tunnel. And I'm not sure we pat ourselves in the back enough. And I don't mean me or government. I'm just saying all of us. We're going to get through this sort of collective trauma together based on what we've learned, based on how resilient we really are. And yeah, we've learned a whole lot in the last 14 months. No question about it, Ronnie.
So with that, what have been the lessons learned for you as the county executive?
Wow, there's been a whole lot. And
Too many to count.
I'll just give you a few. Number one, and we said this from the beginning, is trust the science. And we have done that. Trust your health department experts, but also know this was a new virus and they didn't know absolutely everything. So at the same time, and this has frustrated a lot of people, I think, at the same time, you have to trust the science. You have to understand that the science is going to change. We're going to learn new things. So, at the very beginning, we weren't advising masks. At the very beginning, we were even saying, this makes me cringe now, if you don't have symptoms, then you're probably not contagious. We know now that that's absolutely not true. So just understand that because this was a novel new virus, we're going to learn some new things. And so, but continue, we have to continue to look at the science and make our best judgments. But then the other thing that I've learned is we have to do this together. And I know it's been hard and I know our politics are polarizing, but this has been a united effort of not only government, but the medical community, the science and research community, our business community, our residents. And we have proven, in my view anyway, how resilient we really are. And even though we've had our, there have been disagreements and fights, I go back to when we all had a common enemy, which was the coronavirus, and I think we've all at least understood that, we really are a resilient people that can do big things. This has been the challenge of our generation, and I think largely we've met it, and I'm proud of that.
Dave Coulter here with us on the Megacast. He's the Oakland County Executive, and if I can ask you on top of that, it's really kind of crazy to think about. I will say, I went to Africa a few years ago. Uh-huh. I was required to get vaccines to be able to travel to Africa. I didn't think twice. Went in, it was a series over 2 weeks. Sore arms, side effects, this, that, and the other. But yet I will say, when it came to getting this vaccine, I was hesitant. I think I felt more bullied into getting it than, and when it comes to trusting the medical community, I think I can understand more now, people's understanding, because there's been so much what you were just saying, like, oh, we told you not to wear a mask, not wear a mask, don't do this, no, now do this, no, it spreads this way, it doesn't spread this way. So you can understand why people are hesitant. So do you think, and then you add the Johnson & Johnson on top of that, because I was scheduled to get the vaccine for the Johnson & Johnson the day the alert came out. So then I got put on hold, and people don't understand, like, there are certain times if you have medical tests, I was getting a mammogram, so you had to have it with a certain time frame of getting certain testing, or you had to wait. So now you're like, but should we trust the medical community that seems to be changing day by day? And do you think all of that has really added into the hesitancy that we're seeing right now?
No question. There's no question that all of that has contributed to the hesitancy, which is why from the very beginning, we did treat this different than your trip to Africa or your kids starting in kindergarten or a nurse in the hospital, where you're mandated to get certain vaccines. But we knew that hesitancy might be out there, that this was not only a new virus, but a new vaccine, and that there would be a certain amount of that. And so from the very beginning, we haven't mandated it so far. And I think that's been effective. And if we can get to the 70%, that'll be okay. But there's no question that the newness of this virus, the speed in which we got the vaccine, although that's misleading because they've actually been working on this type of a vaccine for many years. It's just this specific COVID-19 vaccine that they were able to accelerate. But when you look at the science and you talk to the public health experts and the medical community, it is a very safe, very effective vaccine, more so than our other vaccines. So compared to other vaccines, it's a highly effective and safe vaccine, but it's a new pandemic. It's a new COVID-19 is new. And so I think all of that together with some of the political partisanship that we had last year, it was an election year on top of everything else. So everything got a little bit more polarized that way. So I understand that. And that's why we haven't done the mandates. But I just want people to know it is a safe and highly effective vaccine.
Oh, right. And we know that it really gets into kind of a sticky situation for so many of these businesses. And do you have to have a vaccine passport? And because it is a trial phase. This has not been officially approved by the FDA, which we know will change that status and allow mandation of the vaccine. But I have to ask you, because you just mentioned politics, but I do want to jump into the task force as to how this money from the federal government is going to be dispersed. But before we get that, I have to just ask you, bombshell, when it comes to politics, Chief Craig anticipated he's going to be announcing that he's retiring to run on the Republican ticket. Your thoughts? Were you surprised? I was surprised.
I was surprised. And I've known Chief Craig for a while, and I've admired him in terms of what he's done in law enforcement. And I didn't know he harbored those sort of political ambitions. I guess we'll hear later today if that's the case or not. That's the rumor right now. But, Chief Craig has been a great police chief. It's very different to be the governor or a politician. You get a lot more pushback. You gotta take stands on a lot of different issues. And so, when I think
anticipated that he would run for mayor, I will say. So I felt like he had political aspirations, and he is deputy mayor of Detroit. People forget that. Yep. When I stepped down. So I did anticipate, depending on what happened with Whitmer and Duggan, because we have to remember there's there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on here. I thought, he's going to run for mayor, but now it's like, no, I'm going to resign. By the way, he makes twice as much as the mayor. He's still making, he was appointed under the emergency manager, Kevin Orr. He's making well over $200,000 as, the chief of police here in the city of Detroit. But for him to say, I'm retiring, jumping into politics, but on the Republican ticket.
Yeah, that's not a surprise to me. I've seen him on Fox News before, on Tucker Carlson before. I've watched that. I think what's going to be interesting, and to your point about being on the Republican side, is a place like Oakland County. This is going to be a critical county if he's going to be successful. And here's why. Rick Snyder, a moderate Republican, won Oakland County twice. People forget that, even because it's been trending Democratic. But then Governor Whitmer came along before she was governor running, and she defeated Bill Schuette by 17 points here. That's a huge margin of victory. All it shows you is Oakland County is a swing county. I think it's going to be a battleground. And if you're going to be a candidate for governor, Republican or Democrat, but especially a Republican, since it's become more of a Democratic county, you're going to have to do well here. And so what are the suburban moms? What are the moderate voters of Oakland County or slightly left of moderate voters going to think of James Craig when he's going to have to take a side in terms of America First policies and his thoughts about President Trump, who still has a huge grip on the Republican Party. So I think it's going to be fascinating, and he's going to have to do well in a place like Oakland, and we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, the fascinating thing with that, though, is I think he can attract the Oakland County voter and you have to remember, this is a large state. He needs the UP, he needs Grand Rapids. He's been pretty vocal about gun rights. And also when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, he supports it, but also with law and order. You need a permit. We'll give you this much leeway for you to have freedom of speech. But then when you go beyond that, we're coming in, because I think what he was saying is like, you're not going to make us into a Seattle. We are not going to be the city or the county that you see the riots and the buildings burning. And I will say a lot of Detroiters, as well as people in the suburbs, kind of resonated with that message from him.
I don't disagree, but I don't think that that's a Republican or Democratic message. I mean, that was my message. We had dozens of protests and marches last year around that whole Black Lives Matters movement, which I supported, and they were all peaceful and nonviolent. And as long as it's that, then I think we all support that. When you get into lawlessness and crime, I don't think reasonable people on either party support that notion.
Yeah, as someone who was caught up in the riots in Cleveland, I can tell you it's not a pleasant event and something I never want to repeat in my life. And but also the lack of support that you got from the community and from law enforcement. And you look at these businesses. Number one, you're trying to survive COVID, but then you're looted and destroyed. They didn't come back. And you wonder, too, how much of that message is going to resonate. I just wish I was a fly on the wall to sit back and watch this, because we do know that Governor Whitmer is really kind of taking a beating right now. You borrow a plane from some billionaires, you go to Florida when you're telling people not to travel to visit your sick husband. Not a good message. So I think he's jumping in at the right time. It's going to be interesting. I wish I was a fly on the wall.
Well, I will say this, they were getting up to the deadline. They were getting desperate for a candidate because you count out Gretchen Whitmer at your own peril. She's a very effective leader and politician, and she'll be a very formidable candidate next year. And they were getting to the point where they had to have someone. But to your point, James Craig was an interesting choice, and if that's indeed what happens, and should prove to be a very interesting election. And by the way, there's there's a primary to go. That's the other interesting thing about James Craig is that's why I bring up the Trump factor. President Trump is very strong in the Republican Party. And so how does he align himself there? Because that's going to be his first challenge, is just getting through a Republican primary where most Republicans in Michigan support President Trump and the America First agenda that he has advanced. And so how does James Craig navigate that and then pivot to a general election if he's fortunate enough to get through? That's why I like politics. It's a fascinating sport on top of the business that we all do.
So with that, I will say that I think one of the great things to come out of this pandemic, and I'm taking you way too long, so I apologize, but we haven't talked to you in months. So I feel like when I get you, I need to ask you all of these things, but I do think, I really hope the great thing that came out of the pandemic is that people started to really pay attention how important those people we vote into office for the hyper local office matter, because they were making decisions on our school boards, on our city councils. Keep in mind, people like in Kegel Harbor or Sylvan Lake, they're not paid for these positions. This is on top of the job that they have to live as well. Or if they're paid, it's like $25 a meeting or something like that. So we have to understand the commitment that they're making to our communities, but also we're hoping that people now pay attention to our very, very local elections and the impact that it can have on us, our day-to-day lives, our school boards, your kids going to school, not going to school. But with that too, we can I want to ask you about, I think one of the great things you did with the American Rescue Plan, because we're getting this money, millions of dollars that's coming to the county. What's different this time around is we're not in that panic mode. We're in a sit back, let's breathe mode. You started a task force to try to figure out the best way to allocate the $244 million coming to Oakland County. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. We are getting quite a bit of money, $244 million in federal funds. Last year, you mentioned, what we did last year. We got $219 million last year, but the cities and the school districts didn't get any funds. So we gave a decent portion of what we got at the county directly to our local cities and villages and townships and our school districts to help them, because as you said, it was a crisis. It was an emergency situation where we were just trying to keep businesses open, keep schools open, try to keep, get PPE and all of those emergency things. And we had less than a year to spend it. So we had to do it quickly. So I stood up an advisory group last year of business owners, nonprofit leaders, education people to say, what's your greatest needs? Where can we be the most help? And it was a really helpful exercise. So this year's a little different. This money does not need to go to cities and schools because they're going to get their own money. So it's actually an increase for Oakland County. And we have 3 years to spend it because the crisis is over, but the damage to our economy and to our county is not over it. So the question now is, how can we thoughtfully spend this money over the course of the next 2 to 3 years to make the greatest impact in terms of not just surviving a pandemic, but thriving once we get through it? So what does our business community need to thrive? What do our residents need? What do our children need? What do our nonprofits need? What are the investments that we can make that we would never have had the chance before, right? This is money that, and a government official like me, this is a once in a career kind of opportunity. So how can we leverage it and maximize it so that we really focus on what we need to do? So we stood up this group again, but we even expanded it. So more business leaders, more community leaders, nonprofit leaders, experts in their field to help us really think through, where can we make the greatest impact? Because this is a one-time shot of money. And I will tell you, although we haven't finished that work, you're going to see us lean into things like things we knew were a problem before COVID, but have only gotten worse. Child care, for instance. 60% of the child care opportunities in Oakland County that were here a year ago are gone. So, and that's why women are leaving the workforce, because they don't have providers to take care of their children, or their children are trying to learn from home. So we know we have to support our child care network. But here's another one, mental health. We know so many people that have gone through mental health issues this past year. We knew this was a problem before COVID, but has been heightened. So what can we do as a county to make sure that all of our residents who might be suffering from depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, substance use, what can we do to get them the help that they need to keep them out of the criminal justice system in the first place? So you're going to see us leaning into areas like that. I'm really excited about it. And I'm most excited that we have a little bit more time to be more thoughtful about how we spend that money.
It really is like not just the dollars today, but how to grow those dollars as well, because you can take a breath. Hey, I so apologize because I've taken up way too much of your time, but do you want to talk about your Health 360 initiative?
Very briefly, if you don't mind, because this was an initiative that we launched right before COVID last year. We call it Oakland Health 360, and that is, we run these wonderful public health offices in Oakland County, but mostly they were places that you could get vaccines and sort of rudimentary public health support. But we knew that more people needed access to more kinds of services. So we said, we have a health office in Southfield and we have a health office in Pontiac. What can we do to expand the services that we offer? So we set out to increase them to include not only, sort of your standard public health services, but also mental and behavioral health, primary health care, dental care for young children, and just as importantly, sort of resources for parents, social service resources, how to keep your lights on, how to get your kids enrolled in Head Start, all of these other wraparound services that we're going to bring to our clinics. And so today, later this afternoon, in Pontiac, we're going to break ground on the first of the two clinics that now have these additional wraparound services. So that's why we call it 360. So you get a wraparound, global perspective of services from behavioral health to physical health to public health, and you can get them all by going to the county's public health clinic in either Southfield or Pontiac. I'm very excited about that. Now, all of our residents, whether you're underinsured, uninsured, or you are insured but you just want better access to these services, you can now get them through Oakland County.
And that's so great to know, because we do know, especially during the pandemic, so many families are suffering. Maybe they had insurance, lost their jobs, had to take another job that doesn't offer it. So there's a gap there. Yeah. But also, I really think, and I hope, the silver lining out of the pandemic is really addressing mental health in our communities.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it was a huge issue before the pandemic. We knew that only 20% of people in Michigan with mental health issues actually got services, and that's only been exacerbated by the pandemic. So we have to do a better job as a society of treating mental and behavioral health the same way we do physical health, because it's that important.
And with that, I remember talking to police officers like 20 years ago, and they were talking about mental health being really the huge crisis that was overloading their police departments. So it's great.
Ronnie, if you look in the Oakland County Jail, almost 50% of the inmates are on some sort of psychological drug, under some kind of treatment. The key is to get those people into treatment sooner, keep them out of criminal justice so that they don't end up in the jails. Because our just to your point, our officers will tell you, our sheriff will tell you, we're not the best place to treat mental and behavioral health issues in this county. It's on the behavioral health side, and that's what we need to do. And if we invest in that, we can actually see savings on the criminal justice side.
Dave Coulter, Oakland County Executive, we so appreciate your time. I took you way over your allotted time, but anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I just appreciate you so much. Invite me anytime. We don't have to wait too long, but you guys just provide an awesome service in your viewership, keeping people informed, and I'm just thankful that you invited me.
Well, it's always great having you and having your perspective. Thank you again for your time. And with that, when we come back, our apologies to our next guest. We'll be joined with the Michigan Farm Bureau to talk a little bit more about how they've been managing throughout the pandemic. That's next here on the Megacast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down back there in West Bloomfield at the Civic Center TV studios. As a reminder, you can always catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon on civiccentertv.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 and Comcast 99 on AT&T. Listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. I think for so many people, especially here for us in the Detroit area, we are so focused on the automotive industry that we forget just how important the agricultural industry is to the state of Michigan. There are more than 52,000 farms here in Michigan, and agriculture is like $101 billion industry for the state. And with that, we want to bring in Ernie Birchmeier for the Michigan Farm Bureau. You guys have been doing such a good job at trying to navigate this crazy pandemic. It's been a roller coaster ride. Where do things stand right now for so many of the farmers here in the state of Michigan, Ernie?
Sure. Well, first of all, good morning. It's great to be with you. And agriculture is actually a $104 billion industry here in the state of Michigan. We continue to enhance, continue to grow. And, all of our consumers here in the state of Michigan, outside of our state and really across the world, very seldom do we think about where our food comes from or if it's going to be there. But our farmers work diligently on a daily basis to make sure that we have the safest, most abundant, and wholesome food supply in the world with lots of choices. And we're very fortunate to have that. And agriculture is number 2 or number 3 industry in the state, depending upon the year and how good of a year the tourism industry has. The two of us kind of battle back and forth for that second slot. But our farmers continue to farm as they do on a daily basis. It's an exciting time of the year because if you travel to the rural countryside, you'll see tractors in the fields. That's this year's crop being planted. And we've been challenged a bit by the weather, certainly the last couple of weeks, but crops are going in the ground. Our greenhouse operations are in full bloom. Great opportunity for you to go out and buy bedding plants when the weather warms up, or flowers for your yard or your porch, and just an opportunity to buy lots of great wholesome agricultural products that we have in Michigan, and plant your gardens because we have lots of bedding plants and vegetables to be sold as well. So our farmers are putting crops on the ground, things are blooming in the greenhouse, and the trees are challenged. Hopefully they'll be okay, and we'll have an abundant fruit crop later this summer and this fall.
So Ernie, if I could just have you think back to this time last year, what was it like?
A year ago right now, it was challenging. I told people it was one of the more challenging times in my career at Michigan Farm Bureau. I was actually doing 5 to 7 media interviews a day regarding the impact of COVID on farming and on agriculture and the food supply. If you think about it, a year ago right now, we were dealing with market disruptions. Most people in our state had never seen an empty grocery store shelf, and we were dealing with some of that because we were having challenges in the processing industry, challenges in the distribution industry, and people were panic buying at that time, filling up their freezers. We were also dealing with a year ago some shutdowns in businesses due to government restrictions and the inability to buy some of those bedding plants that we talked about. And, our members went to work and worked with leaders in Michigan to allow some of that to happen. We had a lot going on in a very short amount of time. It was rapid fire. It was crisis management at its finest. But at the same time, our farmers were out farming. They were taking care of the livestock. They were putting crops in the ground. They were working to protect the environment. They were growing this next year's food supply and food crop, not just for their livestock, but for all of our consumers as well. And that's the beauty of agriculture, is that we keep moving forward because we know we have to produce the food and fiber for our consumers, not only here in Michigan, but outside of the state as well. So it was rapid fire. It was challenging, some days frustrating, some days exciting. Okay, because you never knew what was going to happen, but the steady and the constant is that our farmers were farming.
One thing, though, I think Americans they were forced to stop and think about their food supply and where it was coming from. So you hope that going into this year, they are really supporting local farmers even more so this year than years in the past, because we also know one of the troubling spots last year around this time, our neighboring states were more open than what we were. So that kind of, also hit that supply chain as well. But now that you feel like you have a chance to breathe, is it business as usual or not quite there yet?
I would say, yeah, business as usual, but with cautious optimism. We know we're going to continue to deal with challenges, and we don't know what the next COVID is going to be. Let's hope there isn't another COVID and we don't have to go through another challenging situation like this last year. But our farmers deal with crisis, ongoing. We are in a worldwide market. We have to remember that 95 or 96% of the world's population lives outside of the United States. And we are constantly challenged by international trade issues or energy issues, leadership issues between countries. And those impact our farmers and their markets on a daily basis. Right now, for instance, and the weather. Let's not forget about that, because the weather is impacting crop availability and crop progress in South America, which has had a dramatic impact on crop prices here in the United States. Our corn and soybean prices have gone up significantly, and that's because worldwide demand is good. China is actually demanding more corn and soybeans to rebuild their swine population and pork production in that country. You have weather-related issues in South America that are impacting their production capability, and there are only so many commodities worldwide. So there's an instance where we're in a worldwide market. It does impact our market prices, and we need to continue to work through all of that as we deal with issues. So we move forward steadily and with progress, but we're always dealing with outside influences.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills, and we're speaking with Ernie Birchmeier here on the Megacast. He is with the Michigan Farm Bureau. With that, Ernie, from the outside, it feels like you have a friend when it comes to Debbie Stabenow and her legislation pushed in DC and trying to support the farm industry. I believe she has a new bill that she is pushing forward to try to give you more flexibility over cover crops? Cover crops. What exactly is that? What are we talking about here? I'm not a farmer. I'll be lucky if I can get my herbs to grow this season.
That's okay. Let's. This is all relative to climate change, to carbon sequestration, to how we deal with continuing to protect the environment from an agricultural standpoint, and how our farmers play into that equation. It's important to note that our farmers around the state are really the original environmentalists. If we don't take care of the environment that surrounds us, we don't have a farm to farm and a farm to pass on to our next generation. But we all know the amount of discussion that climate change, greenhouse gases, carbon sequestration are getting right now. Our farmers have the ability to sequester a lot of carbon on their farm operations because of the plants that we grow, the forest land that we have on our farm, and yes, putting cover crops on those fields during the winter time to help with soil erosion and potentially sequester more carbon. And Senator Stabenow is has put together a bipartisan piece of legislation that calls on voluntary-based, incentive-driven programs that are based upon on sound science. And isn't it great if we could implement a program such as that would reward farmers for additional environmental protection based upon those principles? So she realizes the need to work together, and working together, we can solve a lot more problems than we can by just one side or the other going it alone.
So with that, Ernie, I'm wondering, why has this been a sticking point until now?
I don't necessarily say it's a sticking point because our farmers have been doing this all along. We've implemented environmental practices such as no-till planting here in the state of Michigan. where we can go in and plant the crops without necessarily tilling up the soil, because when you till up the soil, you release greenhouse gases. So we have the ability to do that. We have reduced tillage measures that we put in place. We have an agriculture environmental assurance program here in Michigan that puts together all of the environmental requirements for farmers to meet in the state into one great package that also helps to reduce fertilizer use, water use, helps to protect the environment more. So our farmers have been doing this for a very long time. It's just that it's getting more discussion at the federal level now because of the heightened awareness that's been brought about by the new administration.
I will say with that, Ernie, we're talking with Ernie Birchmeier. He's with the Michigan Farm Bureau. Ernie, so many industries right now, they're already struggling, and the focus is on the employee shortage that they're going through. Do you anticipate that's going to be a big issue for farmers as well?
Labor is always a challenge for agriculture, has been for quite some time. Let's face it, these are jobs that, are physical in nature. A lot of our fruits and vegetables are hand harvested. Our cows, need to be milked on a daily basis, and our livestock need to be taken care of. And we're constantly looking for, employees on farm operations. Ron, if you look across the state, you'll see help wanted signs everywhere. It's not just in agriculture. It's on local business doors in your communities. It's in manufacturing. Lots of restaurants, small business owners, they're all looking for labor right now. We need to make sure that we have a reliable workforce in agriculture, a program that allows us to bring workers in when needed and return home when needed, but to meet the needs of our farmers while they grow the crops that our consumers eat. There are lots of issues swirling, regarding expanded unemployment, and the need for folks to go back to work. So we need to find the balance that works, that allows our businesses and our farms to operate, but still allows those that need to stay home actually need to stay home. So labor is a real issue, and we deal with it every year because our crops need to be planted, harvested, and processed.
So with that, Ernie, we don't want to get into the political side of this, but if we can just talk about the realistic side, we know around this time last year, the big issue was trying to get enough workers in, and we know many of the workers that help our farmers are migrant workers, and we're talking about getting them COVID tested. But now this year, everything is focused around the vaccine. But we know a lot of people in the undocumented world, they're concerned about getting the vaccine, but it's a different time. It's a different administration. What do you anticipate this season's going to look like compared to last year?
Well, first of all, I am not our labor expert, so I'll say that right up front. But we have a program in Michigan Farm Bureau called Great Lakes Ag Labor Services, where we bring in H-2A workers from other countries to fill some of those voids on farm operations where needed. There are strict protocol that are put in place on those farm operations for the workers to deal with relative to testing, relative to vaccination protocol, if that's what the farm decides and the workers want. We have to remember we still have individual rights in this country that need to be protected. But our farmers around the state are very diligent in making sure that their workers are protected, that they're safe, that they're fairly compensated, they have good places to live, and that they're well taken care of. So we follow that very, very close, and we'll continue to do so, because if we don't have workers, our farmers can't be successful either. So the farmer and the worker need to both be happy and satisfied in the situation in order for everything to work well together. Ronnie, we'll continue to deal with regulatory issues and government involvement, if you will, and challenges along the way. That's why I said earlier, we're better off working together to resolve those problems rather than one side doing it by themselves. Sitting down and having collaboration is often an art that's been forgotten about, especially lately. We need to continue to do more of that so that our entire state, including our agricultural community, can move forward.
Those are such wise words, Ernie. I think you should run for elected office on that platform. Ernie Birchmeier with us here on the Megacast. He's with the Michigan Farm Bureau. And again, our apologies to getting to you a little bit late, but anything that maybe I haven't touched on that you want to share as well before we say goodbye?
Sure, I always encourage, and Ronnie, I'm gonna extend the invitation to you again to go out and visit a farm, and for your listeners to go visit a farm and get to know where their food supply comes from. You know, whether you want to buy local or you want to buy, from some of the larger retail outlets that we have in Michigan. Number one, isn't it great that we have choices? Number two, isn't it great that it's affordable? And number three, isn't it great that Michigan is second in diversity of commodity production, meaning we grow more commodities and different types of food in Michigan than any other state in the country except California. So we have a great diversity of agriculture in Michigan. If you start in Southwest Michigan and travel up the west side, you'll find an abundance of fruit orchards, livestock production, vegetable production, all the way from the southwest corner of the state to Traverse City, which is a leading region in the country for tart cherries. Our upper peninsula is filled with lumber and cattle and dairy production. You come back down the state, you've got beef production, crop production, sugar beet production, and those sugar beets are processed, in Bay City for sugar that's shipped across the Midwest. Our thumb is full of a variety of crops and livestock and dairy as well, all the way from the top of Michigan through the southern part of the state. We're very fortunate. I encourage people to get to know where their food comes from. Make your decisions based upon, what you learn from a farmer rather than what you learn from social media, so to speak, and be appreciative of the food supply that we have.
It's so true, Ernie. And with that too, if you go to the farmer's market, you go to Eastern Market, Oakland County, any farmer's market, take the time to speak with the farmers, because we know they are directly involved in what they're selling there and what lessons all of us have learned throughout this pandemic. And hopefully the silver lining is that we appreciate our local farmers as well. Ernie, it's always great having you with us.
It's great to be with you. And again, let me know when you want to visit a farm. We'll make sure we get you out to see several of them in your area.
I will definitely make that happen this summer. So thank you again, Ernie. Ernie Birchmeier with us with the Michigan Farm Bureau. Please support local, support our farmers. With that, we're going to take a quick break. Again, our apologies to our next guest for running a little bit behind, but when we come back, we'll be speaking with the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools. That's next here on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. We're here live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. I'm Ronnie Dahl, Mr. Tyler Keefe, holding things down for us back there at the studios in West Bloomfield. And again, our apologies for running a little bit behind, but we were lucky enough to get the Wayne County Executive at the top of the show. And it's been a few months since we've been able to book him just due to scheduling. So we went on a little bit long, but with that, we still have so many important things to talk about. And joining us now, Brian Broderick. He is the Executive Director for the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Ronnie. Thank you for the invitation.
And so really when I look at this, I know that so many of our private and Catholic and Christian schools have really seen an influx of students coming in the very beginning because so many of the public schools were closed down. But as the pandemic's going on, is that still the case?
Yeah, it is. It is the case. It just really depends on what area of the state you're in. So Oakland County, for instance, did see a pretty large influx of students come to the private Christian schools in Oakland County. It was probably less so in other areas of the state. A lot of it, as you know, private schools are dependent on tuition dollars, and so a lot of it depends on what the family's capability is to afford attending one of those schools.
And I want to talk a little bit about that too, because we do know that this has been a tough year for all school districts, whether you're private, Catholic or Christian or religious, or even the public schools. But what has been the backside of this when we're hearing about the CARES Act or the new program with the Let's Save America? Are your schools getting any of that money?
There is the ability. President Trump at the end of December, when they passed the Coronavirus Relief Act, included a fund for non-public schools. It's called Economic Assistance for Non-Public Schools. So $87 million has come to the state of Michigan, specifically just for non-public schools to utilize. Our schools are now in the process of applying for that funding. We're waiting, on the other hand, for the legislature to appropriate the money and for the governor to sign that appropriation. She's declined to sign it twice already. We're hoping this week that she will sign it. And then schools will be able to access some of those dollars. In addition to that, there's another $87 to $90 million that was part of President Biden's American Rescue Plan that is coming to the state. That hasn't arrived at the state yet. That will probably roll out sometime this summer, early fall, and that will be exclusively for Michigan's non-public schools.
Because we do know and realize there was kind of a fight even prior to the pandemic about some of the funding for the non-public schools.
There was
just been an ongoing fight for people such as you and your organization.
Yeah, there was a dispute early on with the CARES Act in terms of the amount of money that was available to go to non-public schools. It got resolved by the courts. And so some CARES Act money has flowed to non-public schools. It's not to the amount that I think Secretary DeVos had planned for or indicated was a way to distribute it. But the courts resolved that issue, and our schools have been moving forward with that. We were pleased that, through some efforts of lobbying at the national level, that this current round of funding is exclusively for non-public schools. So there's no debate going, between public schools and non-public schools about access to dollars. And I think that was a wise way for Congress and both presidents to move forward.
Brian Broderick with us here on the Megacast. He is the executive director with the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools. And with that, Brian, can you talk about we understand your schools have also suffered through this pandemic and trying to adhere to the public and health safety measures that have been put in place by our elected leaders.
Yeah, all schools have really, it's been a great big learning curve. The intent of all of our schools really has been to try to provide in-person learning. And so in the fall of 2020, schools took the steps that were required by the state government. Many of them have, great cost implications to them with regard to protocols that have to be in place for the safety of students. But our schools made a priority to say, it's the in-person education is paramount to the success of a student. And so they went, really to all lengths to be able to provide that in-person education, all while observing the protocols and observing all the requirements. When they had incidences of COVID, schools had to shut down or go to a hybrid format. All of that, does cost a lot of money, whether you're talking about going to remote education or whether you're just talking about, providing cleaning supplies and all those things that are necessary in a school building. So there's been a cost involved to it. It's been burdensome, but we're hopeful that this pot of money that's now been made available allows for some of those costs to be reimbursed.
And I will say that at the very beginning of this, it really highlighted the difference between private, religious, and public schools. And when the money was coming down the pipeline, it was going directly to the public schools. But we know every school is still has a burden to try to reach these thresholds that are set forth by the state mandates.
Yeah, I mean, our schools and public schools both had to deal with, all sorts of issues, whether it was remote learning or whether it was just protecting students. One advantage I think the number of our MANS member schools have is that they're a little bit smaller than a traditional public school. So it made it somewhat easier to come with the mandates and really to in-person education. But I think what I really want to emphasize is that it was just a commitment of administrators, teachers, parents, and students to sort of fight through the pandemic, fight through all of this so that we could provide the education that's necessary for students.
So with that, Brian, can I ask you, because the families that were able to afford sending their kids to a religious school, and we know there's been an increase, but with that, do you anticipate that's going to continue maybe next fall or 2 years from now as public schools get back to fully operating in person?
I hope so. I mean, I think that what families are going to see when they make the sacrifice to send their child to a faith-based school is that it helps the child's learning, it helps the child's faith life, it helps the child to really improve. And I think the sacrifice, I'm hoping that the sacrifice will be seen to be worth it for those families and that they'll continue on and they're just not coming in, for a 1 or 2 year period. I think our schools really strive to educate the whole child, and they do that through a variety of ways. And I think that the ability to, or the success of the schools is really that they address not only the student, but the family and really make it an important facet of that child's life.
So with that, Brian, I know that Spring Connect sessions are coming up. Explain exactly what those are.
Yeah, MANS offers, our association offers professional development for students, or I'm sorry, not for students, for administrators and teachers. And last fall, we typically have an in-person conference of a few thousand people of teachers and administrators. Last fall, we had to cancel that, and we went to a virtual setting for that conference, and it met with some success. As teachers and administrators sort of got used to doing these sort of virtual conferences, Zoom meetings and such, we were able to provide that professional development using remote technology. We're doing that again this year with Spring Connect, and that's currently ongoing. It's available on a platform for 9 months, and so teachers can get into it and get professional development on particularly really important issues these days, including remote learning, social and emotional learning. And then they're able to better serve their students and families in the classroom and also get their continuing clock hours for their teacher certification.
And we really hope there's a silver lining to this. And if you would have talked to us like Zoom, I was like, what is Zoom? It was confusing in the beginning. Now we're all Zoom experts. So really there's kind of a silver lining in that we can connect with people in a different way and more meaningful way as well. And hey, Brian, before we say goodbye to you, if I can just get your thoughts when we're looking at the vaccination process, because it really seems that so many schools are not at this time mandating, except around the college campuses, but I would anticipate this is going to really trickle down through the community. Your thoughts on the vaccination process?
Yeah, I'm not sure if our member schools or parishes are going to require vaccinations. I know that the teachers in the schools when the vaccinations were made available, I would think the vast majority of them went and got vaccinated. I know vaccinations are currently rolling out now for students, and I think it may be even going down to students that are maybe 12 years old as well, 12 years old and up. So I don't know that it's going to become mandatory. I think that's a discussion that's going to have to be made at the school level, for the Catholic schools at the diocesan level, for our other Christian member schools that have boards. I think they're all going to have to make those determinations individually in terms of how they want to proceed. I think any sort of vaccination requirement would likely include exemptions or waivers for religious objections or health objections. I think that's currently how our vaccination process works right now for students, where vaccinations are required for students to attend school for your normal childhood diseases like chickenpox and measles and such.
Brian Broderick with us here on the Megacast. He's the executive director for the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools. With that, Brian, we always appreciate your time. Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add?
I just say thanks for the opportunity. I think I guess my message to parents and communities and folks that are involved with our schools is just to be patient. This is a big learning curve for administrators and teachers. I think they've been very successful in what they've been able to do, but there's been some bumps along the way. And I think it's important that we try to exercise as much patience and cordiality as possible as schools maneuver around these, and parents and students as well. It's all new to them too. So it's just a matter of everybody being patient with each other and polite to each other so we can make it through this.
Such good words to leave on. So Brian, again, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be joined with the state director for the Nature Conservancy here in Michigan. This is the Megacast.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. This show actually started way back in the beginning of the pandemic as a way just to try to keep the public informed of everything that was going on in the middle of the crisis, because information was changing so quickly. Tyler and Dave Scott started the program, anticipated it was only going to be lasting maybe 2 weeks, a month, Tyler?
There we go. There's my microphone working, right? And yeah, just about 2 months was what we, no, 2 weeks or so, a few weeks, maybe a couple of months while we got through the details of it, not knowing how long this was going to go on for sure, or how long the show was going to be necessary. And here we are, over a year later.
It is so crazy, but the information continues to change, and it has impacted all of our daily lives, from businesses to nonprofits to schools. We're all still struggling to ride the roller coaster of the coronavirus ride. And that includes so many of our nonprofits. So let's go ahead and bring in now Helen Taylor. She's the state director for the Nature Conservancy of Michigan. It's so great to be so great to have you with us. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
So I will have to tell you, my husband went golfing, so my dog is like moving around and doing things, but I'm trying to prevent her with her big tail. I'm like, it needs to be registered as a dangerous weapon, because sometimes she comes in with her tail and it will knock like the light or the camera. So
We're all coping. We're all having to adjust.
So I apologize. And if Trixie barks, she's just saying hello to you. How are you doing, though? I think this is the first time we're having you on the show, at least with me. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got spring fever. The sun is out. That's a special day in Michigan, as we all know, with the weather. And when you work in conservation, it just means good days for field work and being outside.
So with that, tell us more about the organization.
Well, the Nature Conservancy, it was founded in 1951. We're actually global. We're the world's largest. So we have staff in all 50 states and 70 countries. And we're all working on the same thing, to protect the lands and waters on which all life depends, which is a very big statement. What that looks like in Michigan is we have 60 staff members. Around the world, we've protected 125 million acres. In Michigan, it's almost up to 400,000. And what we're all working on is protecting and restoring our forests, our coasts, our wetlands, our inland waterways, as well as water quality. And we work in cities too. And everything we think about is in the context of the Great Lakes. And I guess the other thing I would add is we're a little bit different than many environmental organizations in that our feet are on the ground, our boots are in the water. We are actually doing the science and research to figure out practical solutions. And then we demonstrate those in real places with partners like farmers and foresters and agencies and universities. And then what we hope is that can be handed off and people apply those practices in other places. But we also use that knowledge to craft policy and help decision makers and businesses with their sustainability practices as well. So I think the upshot is we're really trying to make sure that nature is healthy for both people and nature so that it can provide these things for us for future generations.
So with that, Helen, you have a huge mission. And when we're talking about globally as well, trying to take what's happening here in our backyard and applying it to not only the backyards of so many states across the US, but globally as well. So it's a big mission that you've taken on, but what has the past year been like? Because one thing that we have seen, people have been forced to get out and enjoy nature more. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, and in fact, forced, I guess I would say, have been given this incredible opportunity to reconnect, because even in my neighborhood, I see people walking that could have been walking before, but now they've decided to walk around the neighborhood. We have 55,000 acres that we own, and about 29 preserves around the state. And the visitation level has just spiked. And we're thrilled about that. In fact, it's challenging us that we want to make sure that experience is great. And are we giving them the education in all these different types of habitats and places? So it's been I hope it's a new norm that people adopt that and getting that connection, because we're so digital oriented in today's world. So this is an exciting opportunity to not go back, but keep going forward in that way.
So with that, you just mentioned digital. How do you take those platforms that are new, the digital platform, and try to connect it with the purity of Mother Nature to also educate the public to get them to care.
Right. Well, so there's some things that we've learned from this experience that we will not stop doing because it's been a realization for us. There are people that we get to an age where you can't hike quite the same way you used to. So we've created virtual experiences at our preserves. There's videos you can go on our website. So if it's too far away or you're just not at the point that you can do a rigorous hike, you can experience that beauty by being immersed in it virtually. But the other thing is we have a lot more events on Zoom. And I don't know why we weren't doing that before, because the truth is people can attend from all over. So the attendance is huge. We have something we call conservation cafes, where for an hour you meet with a scientist, you learn about the work on the ground. But before, we were getting up to 100 people at those luncheons, but now we can have hundreds because they can all, click in and experience it. So that's a great realization for us.
And something that will carry over as well. But when we're talking about appreciating our backyards in Michigan, I really feel like people are starting to understand the beauty that is in the backyard. Because before, when we were comfortable traveling, people always went up north, right? But really, we went a spring break. We went to Florida. We went to Mexico. We went to Europe. Well, we couldn't do that any longer. We had to explore what was here. And also we know that even coming out of the pandemic, people still are not comfortable traveling. So what are the big areas that you suggest they go and really appreciate what Michigan has to offer?
Right. Well, that's like trying to choose your favorite child, right? So that's the beauty of doing this work in Michigan. I feel like the luckiest person on earth because Michigan has so much diversity of habitat, and coastlines are also different. So if you're interested in the incredible dune, the largest freshwater dune system in the world, you go to the west side of the state, up and down for 500 miles, you've got incredible beauty. I have a great love of the Upper Peninsula. I am always surprised at how many people from Michigan have never crossed that bridge or gone past the bridge to experience it. So some of my favorite places are the Lachino Islands over to the east, as well as the Keweenaw Peninsula. I'm going to offend people by not mentioning their area, I know, but things like Pictured Rocks and Tequendama Falls, I mean, you just have to go. And now is a good time. There's a little bit of time you want to skip because the mosquitoes can be kind of intense and the black flies. So after 4th of July, then there's so much to experience up there. So, but then there's an area of the state in the northeastern lower part of the mitten near Alpena, that whole area, people don't know as well. And that is an extraordinary shoreline. So I could go on, but it's hard to choose.
And sometimes we should let people know too, these things are not far away. No. It could be an hour and a half drive. And you know what? We're not driving our daily commute any longer. That commute to Detroit every day used to drive me crazy. I shifted my work hours so I didn't have to sit in traffic for an hour and a half for a 32-mile commute.
And someone recently shared that every Michigander is within 6 miles of a natural body of water. Now, how lucky are we? That's incredible. So the inland lakes and rivers, you don't have to go to the big shoreline to experience incredible beauty.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I also kind of look at this time of, so many kids have been introduced to nature throughout this time, or maybe, they could have learned about it in class, but now they were stuck at home. So their parents were like, let's go outside, explore nature. And do you think that could spark the next generation of conservationists here, not just in the state of Michigan, but globally?
Well, let's hope so. And I want to deepen what we hope happens in that connection for the next generation, because it's not just about beautiful, pristine places far away. It's really about deepening our understanding of what nature provides for us and how we depend on nature. So everything from, it's extraordinary how little people know about where their food comes from, and how when we raise our food and what we eat has an impact on water quality and soil health. And our farmers are key to that. So supporting our farmers and understanding what they need to improve their practices, but also improve their bottom line so they can feed us. It's the same with understanding where the table that you eat on comes from. The timber industry is an incredibly important part of our economy. So, and the same with water. Where does water come from? It's amazing how many children just think it comes out of a tap, but they don't know where it comes from before that, and how our use of land has an impact on our water quality. So we all have a role and a responsibility for how we use nature for those food and water. So my wish, and I see it happening with the way my own children and other students are learning about those connections, that we're going to be in great hands, but we need to tighten the understanding of cause and effect and how nature, how we use it so that it can actually continue to thrive and support us as a species, because nature will go on with or without us. If we want to exist, we need to be in balance.
Helen Taylor with us here on the Megacast. She's the state director for the Nature Conservancy Michigan. We know your organization is also a nonprofit. How can people find out more and support the work that you're doing as well?
Well, we would love that. Our website is nature.org, and that will take you to the global organization. And then you'll also, if you do /Michigan, you will find the work that's going on in any state, anywhere you want. And as for support, part of it is the spreading the word of the importance of conservation. Of course, as a nonprofit, we depend on the financial generosity of people, and becoming a member is a wonderful thing. But actually taking action in your own life to get to understanding the resources and visiting them, all the things you were asking about. To me, Michiganders live here because they understand and appreciate the beauty of the lands and waters. And so we all have to find our path to contributing to protecting it.
So with that, Helen, too, we should remind people donations are always welcome.
Absolutely.
We're not driving to work, so you're not going through Starbucks like you used to. So take that $5 that you would spend on your Starbucks and donate it to organizations such as yours.
Right. Well, thank you for saying that. I won't argue with that comment.
Helen, we so appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks for having me, Ronnie.
Thank you for being with us. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Just about 20 minutes left here in the Monday edition of the show. And when we come back, we'll be speaking with the owner of S.W.A.G Kids Gym. That's next here on the Megacast.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Thanks for taking time to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios, which really means I'm sitting in my workout clothes, other than the jacket I
Lucky you.
Today, Tyler is holding things down back there at the studios in West Bloomfield. Hey, great to have our last guest, but thank you for taking time to be with us here on the Monday edition of the Megacast. Really, I think such an important issue. It was prior to the pandemic, and we're talking about childhood obesity. There were more than 17.3 million kids here in the state between the ages of 10 to 17 that were thought to have childhood obesity. And that's not taking into consideration this past year, with COVID-19 and all the kids not going into the classroom, they're sitting in front of their computer screens. So it's so important to talk about getting our kids active. With us now on the show, we're happy to have Ralph Tompkins. He's the owner, S.W.A.G Kids Gym. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for having me. How you doing?
Okay, I can already feel the energy off of you. You're a happy person.
Absolutely. It's me.
So with that, Ralph, though, tell us about your gym. You cater to kids?
Absolutely. So our gym is a gym for kids, which is super awesome because there aren't a ton of them out there in the world. So we start as young as 10 months. We go all the way up through when they begin to hit high school, so 12, 13. So we cover a little bit of everything from gymnastics to ninja warrior classes to beginning kids strength training and learning how to properly work out. So we service a range of different opportunities.
What I love as I was on your website is the terminology that you all use, and that it's education of physical literacy. How'd you come up with that?
Yeah, so it's more than just S.W.A.G is more than just about play. We want all of our kids and our parents who have to interact within classes for kids that are under the age of 4, they get to join in with their kids. We want the parents and the kids to have an understanding of why they do what they do as far as exercise. So that's what physical literacy is all about, is building that confidence, comfort, and understanding of why exercise is great and the reasoning behind being able to do exercise so they understand what they're doing. So it's more than just play, it's an understanding and an education of learning what you're doing.
I will say, though, as adults, sometimes we forget, like when we were told, hey, it's recess, go out and play. We didn't realize that, like, the extra energy and calories that was burning until you become an adult, and then you have to play with a kid. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So with that, can I talk to you just about what's it been like for your gym over the past year? Because gyms were closed, then they were open, then they're open in capacity. But yet we also know kids are remote learning and they're not getting the physical activity that they did before.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag, but with the gym being closed, we actually were able to create more opportunities for us to do outreach. So kids are still able to have that potential outlet. So obviously, like we're on right now, we did a lot of Zoom gym classes, which were super big. It was good for us to be able to interact with different schools, different kids that came here, and just being able to see their faces and interact in a way where we can guide some exercise. So that's been great. And then when the gyms weren't open still in the summer, we actually took our equipment out to houses, and people were, getting a group of friends at their house, and we ran gym class there. So it's been really great. It's allowed us to be super creative despite the gym being closed when, the stay-at-home order was in place. We were able to go outside. We were able to do Zoom calls. We were still able to do all those things to get that interaction with kids. So as hard as it was to have a gym shut down for a few months, it created extra opportunities for us to reach out to the community and still get that exercise outlets for kids, which was super needed and necessary. So it was a blessing in disguise.
So with that, Ralph, I have to ask you, how did you get so interested in focusing a gym on just kids?
So before I started my own gym, I worked at a national company that was called The Little Gym. So it focused and centered around kids. And I worked there for 5 years and loved their concept, but literally just wanted to expand more. So took the risk, took the jump, and now it's a great opportunity to incorporate some of the things that I learned from being in the community of West Bloomfield for 5 years, working for that company, and expanding it into my own and making it my own vision in regards to so many things that so many kids need in their life.
It's so important to start those habits at a young age. We're joined with Ralph Tompkins. He's the owner of S.W.A.G kids' gym. And with that, I think it's great that you've been able to get creative and kind of take the gym on the road per se. What advantages or things that you've had to shift throughout the pandemic that you think you maybe wouldn't have explored prior, but now you've come to realize this might be a good business model?
I think the biggest thing is, the biggest thing that we've taken away as a company and I've taken away as a business owner is that flexibility and being adaptive to the current environment is something that is literally super important. So I would have, honestly, when I built this out, I would have never thought to take the show on the road, so to speak. But it's actually a great way. Like when we were out on the road, we had an opportunity to actually get to know the families a little bit better, because when you come to the comfort of somebody's home, everybody's just a little bit more relaxed and welcoming. And it's actually, from a structure standpoint, it's actually a little bit nicer, because whatever we're able to bring in our truck is they get to play with. As opposed to in the gym, there's so many different options of things that they can do inside the gym. It actually centers the focus on exercise, and their kids, you actually see their true character when they're at home.
That is so true. But I love that you used they get to play with, because I think for parents too, when we're talking about this, if we approach it from a child standpoint, it's play, but it's also trying to create those lifelong habits that will keep them healthy.
Exactly. So that's what is that, and that's why we start so young. And a lot of times, we might get some 10-month-old, 12-month-old, 14-month-old. They may be shy or just hesitant to do things, but the more you put them in an atmosphere where, it's consistent, they see the same people, they do the same things, they see the same things, they get more comfortable in it. And then, of course, when they become, more confident and less shy, then you really see their motor skills develop, and you see their social skills and physical skills really flourish. So that's why we like to start it early. And then, of course, for those kids who had to take that unfortunate break from school due to the pandemic, what it gives them is literally, like you said, the recess touched on, is an opportunity to have an outlet, but they're learning through exercise, which makes their experience really, really good. And they still get to be in that environment like they're used to, being around other kids, doing the same thing and having the same energy and focusing on the same exercise. So it's a win-win for literally all the age groups that we service.
So Ralph Tompkins with us here on the Megacast. He is the owner for S.W.A.G Kids Gym. And I have to ask Ralph, with that, when we look at childhood obesity, it has been on the rise prior to the pandemic, and those numbers are expected to be so much worse when we start to look at the numbers coming out of the pandemic. We now have like a year of kids that have been remote learning. Like, it's just those little things, getting up, moving from class to class, and this, that, and the other. They're not doing that now. Well, what advice do you have to parents if they have a child that they just can't get motivated to move?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, obviously this year has been like a challenge for everybody. It really has. But, from the parental standpoint, I think looking into now programs like ours and, outdoor things of that nature, they're starting to open up. So the biggest thing I can say is literally like, get your kid involved in a program, something like S.W.A.G or maybe like a sport or different like that. So it literally just introduces the concept of like group play, exercise, moving, fun. Also, literally just, something simple as like, hey, fam, let's go ahead and just go for a walk. Let's go for a run. Let's go to the park. Let's just do something to get out of the house, because, you need that. I think everybody understands that they need to be able to see something different other than their house. So literally the first step is literally just getting out the house, and maybe just walking in the driveway for 10 minutes. And then, what comfort levels grow, and everybody has different various comfort levels, which I completely respect. Then you look into programs like S.W.A.G, because what you find is when you're involved in something and kids have an understanding where they're able to join and be a part of a group and exercise and learn, it's a great experience for them, and it kind of makes up for that lost time when you're getting involved and getting moving. So, definitely look out to different programs that you want your kid to be a part of. Or if you're not comfortable with that yet, just literally head outside, go for a walk, go for a run. Even if it's for 10 minutes, it's better than no minutes.
And don't you find too, I mean, even as adults, it's like half the challenge is getting to the gym, or getting outdoors. But once you're outdoors, you're, more inspired to stay outdoors and keep going. It's just getting them out in front of the computer screen, because they're learning, playing video games, watching Netflix. It's become their life. Yeah. Whereas we were like, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, my parents were like, go out and play and don't come home until it's dark.
Yeah, figure it out, right? Yeah.
I don't think we see that happening any longer with that. Ralph Tompkins with us here. He's the owner of S.W.A.G Kids Gym. Ralph, tell us more about some of the programs that you offer and where you're located.
Sure. So we offer year-round classes. So that's our bread and butter. Year-round classes for ages 10 months all the way up through 14 years old. Again, gymnastics, sports, ninja warrior, beginning strength training. We also do birthday parties. We also, like I mentioned earlier, come to your house and do a gym class. We do Zoom classes. You can literally book a group of friends to come in the gym and do a private gym class. We do Zoom. So we got several different streams where people can utilize our services. And we're located on 14 Mile and Hagerty Road. In our complex is Walgreens, it's Tropical Smoothie, it's FedEx. We're right across the street from Panera. And then, we offer unlimited classes. So we have $50 a month. You can come for unlimited classes, as many classes as your kid can schedule in. We offer that. And you even get to try a class out for free to see if you like it. So the information on that is swagkidsgym.com. We have our social media at swagkidsgym.com, both on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
So with that, Ralph, can I ask too? Oh, by the way, I was watching a Ninja Warrior last night on TV. They are insane. That is that's insanity. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But the cool thing about the gym is most of our Ninja Warrior equipment is padded. So if parents are, wondering about, it could be dangerous, which having a kid, speaks for itself. You're always on alert, right? But our facility and our equipment is padded. So they get to take those extreme risks, but they get to do it safely inside the gym, kind of speaking to the Ninja Warrior piece.
So with that too, do the parents need to stay there with their kids too?
We do have a lot of drop and goes now. So if parents have kids over the age of 4 and they feel comfortable dropping off, we're all right with it. It's good. If not, we have massage chairs, we have couches, we got TVs, we got everything for them to just kind of lounge and relax. But if you're under 4, you got to stay in. But if you're over 4, you can drop and go.
And how long are most of the classes?
They range anywhere from 45 minutes for our little guys that are under the age of 4, up to an hour-long classes for 4 and up. So there's a lot of energy and a lot of activity and a lot of structured activities that go on within those time frames for each respective groups.
So I would think, though, when the kids go home, they're exhausted. They want a nap.
Definitely 4 and under, for sure. And it's crazy. Parents are kind of just literally plan out okay, wake up, get breakfast, go to the gym, maybe prepare lunch, and then it's nap time. So a lot of parents like that. Okay, I got 3 hours right there, 3 hours of nap time so I can get some stuff done after gym class. Sometimes for the older kids, we'll find that it gives them actually more energy at home, but they sleep a little bit better. But with young ones, usually it tuckers them out and they get a mid-afternoon nap. So it all depends on your kid. We don't guarantee your kid after they take an hour gym class, they're going to go right to bed. but at the same time, their day is really made, and it really makes the day a lot easier for the parents too as well, kind of winding the days down.
And we know so many parents right now need that break. They need that time just to go. So it's not only so much about getting their kids the physical activity that they need. And I think it's great that you're talking about physical literacy, because gym classes have been canceled or cut throughout this entire pandemic. And it's so important to get our kids engaged and get them moving, but also to create those lifetime habits to keep them healthy.
100%.
Ralph Tompkins with us here. He's the owner for S.W.A.G Kids Gym. Hey, Ralph, one last question. Can I drop on my dog? She is like full time. And so if we don't have time to take her to the park and tire her out, she's like a pest all day long.
No, we're going to have to create it. Now, my head's always thinking of new ideas to incorporate it. And it's crazy because my gym director, Katie, she loves dogs. I like dogs. I don't do much with them, but she's a dog lover. And I'm sure if I incorporated that, she would absolutely love that piece. But you never know what comes in the future, right? Opportunities are opportunities.
Well, we so appreciate that parents, that they should take advantage of the services that you're offering as well. So thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ralph Tompkins, owner of S.W.A.G Kids Gym located there in West Bloomfield. That's going to wrap it up for the Monday edition. Great to have everyone with us. This is the Megacast.